The night sky over Earth was calm, the familiar stars twinkling quietly as millions of people slept unaware of the silent threat approaching from the depths of space. Suddenly, without warning, a ripple of disturbance cut through the peaceful darkness. An enormous fleet of ships emerged from a rift in space, shimmering like giant metallic shadows. The Galactic Empire had arrived. These ships were unlike anything Earth had ever seen, colossal in size, sleek in design, with sharp edges gleaming under the sun's distant light, their engines humming with an ominous power that seemed to vibrate through the very air. Far from the peaceful lives below, in space stations and command centers around the world, alarms blared urgently. Governments scrambled to make sense of the sudden appearance. Scientists stared at their screens, faces pale with shock as their radars picked up thousands of incoming vessels moving swiftly toward Earth's orbit. The Galactic Empire was known across the stars as an unstoppable force, a relentless conqueror that crushed entire civilizations with ease, turning planets into silent colonies. Earth, until now considered an insignificant backwater, had suddenly become a target in the Empire's vast hunger for domination. Leaders from the United Nations and military commanders convened hastily, their voices tight with tension as they debated how to respond to a threat beyond their wildest imaginations. But the Empire was not there to negotiate. Massive scout ships began descending toward the surface, casting long shadows over cities and oceans, their presence triggering panic among civilians who witnessed strange objects blotting out the stars. In secret, humanity's defense forces moved swiftly. A hidden coalition of scientists, soldiers, and engineers activated an old but carefully maintained Project Operation Sentinel, a global network of underground bunkers and advanced weapons systems designed to protect Earth in case of an alien attack. It was humanity's best hope. As Imperial scouts landed near remote military bases, their soldiers disembarked with cold precision, scanning the terrain with advanced sensors. The Empire expected little resistance from a primitive world, but humanity had prepared in ways the invaders did not anticipate. Soldiers in camouflaged gear melted into forests and mountains, launching surprise attacks on supply convoys with guerrilla tactics never seen before by the Empire's veterans. Civilians joined the effort, turning factories into workshops for makeshift weapons, and hackers infiltrated enemy communications, sowing confusion and fear among the Imperial ranks. On board the Empire's flagship, Admiral Kyle observed the unfolding scenes with growing frustration. The conquest of Earth was supposed to be a swift and easy victory, a mere addition to the Empire's growing list of subdued worlds. Instead, he saw something unexpected: fierce determination and resourcefulness in humanity's defense, qualities that reminded him of the stories told about ancient warrior civilizations long thought extinct. He ordered a shift in tactics, sending elite assault teams to crush the pockets of resistance. But each mission ended with heavy losses, as human fighters used their knowledge of the planet's diverse environments to their advantage, striking from hidden positions and disappearing before the enemy could respond. The tension escalated as battles raged beneath the watchful eyes of satellites and orbital weapons platforms. Earth's night skies were streaked with the glow of energy blasts and explosions, illuminating cities and forests in surreal colors. Despite the fear and destruction, hope burned fiercely in the hearts of those defending their home. Leaders broadcast messages of unity and courage to the global population, urging people to stand firm against the invaders. Across continents, volunteers gathered to join the fight, their resolve strengthening the resistance's numbers. Meanwhile, a group of scientists working deep underground made a breakthrough. They managed to hack into an Imperial device left behind during a skirmish, unlocking technology far beyond human understanding. With this newfound knowledge, they began developing countermeasures and weapons that could level the playing field. Time was running out, and the stakes could not be higher. Every day brought new challenges, but also new hope. The Empire was powerful, but Earth's defenders had something no machine could match: the unbreakable human spirit. The fate of the planet hung in balance as the first wave of the invasion pressed harder, and humanity braced for a battle that would decide not just their survival, but the future of their entire species. The sky over Earth was no longer calm. It had become a battlefield where human courage met alien might in a deadly dance that would decide the fate of the planet. After the sudden arrival of the Galactic Empire's armada, the first real clashes had begun, and the world was waking up to a war unlike any before. The Empire's soldiers moved confidently across the landscapes, their technology far beyond anything humanity had seen, their weapons capable of tearing through steel and stone with ease. They expected to crush Earth's defenses quickly, to conquer and claim the planet as another jewel in their vast collection of conquered worlds. But humanity refused to be so easily subdued. From dense forests to sprawling cities, small bands of soldiers and volunteers launched fierce hit-and-run attacks, striking at the Empire's supply lines and communication outposts before melting back into the shadows. The invaders' advanced sensors often failed to detect these guerrilla fighters, who used Earth's natural terrain like a shield and a weapon. These human fighters were not just skilled. They were unpredictable, fearless, and deeply driven by the desire to protect their home. Earth's leaders coordinated a complex network of resistance cells that communicated in code, avoiding the Empire's electronic surveillance. They turned abandoned subway tunnels, mountain caves, and ruined factories into bases from which to launch their surprise strikes. In cities, civilians became heroes, assisting by hiding soldiers, sabotaging equipment, and spreading information to keep the resistance alive and strong. The Empire's commanders were baffled and frustrated. Their training taught them to expect clear battle lines, to overwhelm their enemies with superior firepower and technology. Instead, they faced a swarm of invisible fighters who struck like ghosts, then vanished before retaliation. The invaders began to realize that conquering Earth would demand more than brute force. It would require adaptation and cunning. A critical moment came when a convoy carrying vital supplies for the Imperial forces was ambushed in a narrow mountain pass. Using homemade explosives, traps, and expert marksmanship, the human resistance destroyed the convoy in a brutal, fast strike that left no survivors. This success sent a shockwave through the Empire's ranks and lifted the spirits of Earth's defenders. The resistance grew bolder, attacking key installations, capturing enemy technology, and learning more about their foes' weaknesses. Among the resistance was Captain Elena Morales, a former pilot turned ground commander whose sharp mind and courage inspired those around her. She led her team on daring missions, including a raid on an Imperial communication hub that yielded valuable intelligence. With this information, Earth scientists could better understand the Empire's strategies and develop countermeasures. Deep underground, the secret coalition of scientists raced against time, using alien technology salvaged from fallen enemies to create new weapons and defenses. They worked day and night, driven by the hope that their inventions could turn the tide of war. Meanwhile, hackers infiltrated imperial networks, spreading false orders and sabotaging systems to slow the invaders' advance. In the skies, human pilots flew fighter jets patched together with scavenged parts and alien tech. These planes were slower and less advanced than Imperial fighters, but piloted by skilled, determined aviators who used daring maneuvers and clever tactics to even the odds. Dogfights lit up the sky as the Empire sent its elite squadrons to crush the human resistance, only to find themselves challenged by pilots who refused to back down. One such pilot was Lieutenant Marcus Chen, whose quick reflexes and sharp instincts earned him a reputation among both allies and enemies. He became a symbol of hope, leading sorties that disrupted Imperial bombing runs and protected civilian populations. As the battles raged, Earth's leaders broadcast messages of resilience, encouraging citizens to stay united and strong. The world, once divided by politics and borders, now stood together against a common enemy. People found strength in community, sharing resources, knowledge, and courage. Fear was real, but so was determination. The Galactic Empire responded to these setbacks with brutal reprisals, targeting villages and towns suspected of harboring resistance fighters. These acts of cruelty only hardened humanity's resolve, reminding them that they were fighting not just for survival, but for their freedom and dignity. As days turned into weeks, the Resistance uncovered a critical secret: the Empire's technology, while advanced, had weaknesses that could be exploited. Certain weapons were vulnerable to electromagnetic pulses, and their communication networks relied on centralized hubs that, if destroyed, could blind their forces. Armed with this knowledge, the Resistance planned a daring assault on one of the Empire's forward command centers, a fortress-like structure bristling with defenses. Captain Morales led the attack with a mixture of precision and daring, her team infiltrating the base under cover of darkness. The mission was dangerous, with heavy losses along the way, but the payoff was huge. They crippled the enemy's communication for days, causing chaos and confusion among Imperial troops. This victory sent shockwaves through the Empire and inspired Earth's defenders to push harder. However, the Empire was far from defeated. In response to their losses, they unleashed a powerful new weapon, a massive war machine capable of unleashing devastating energy blasts that could level entire cities. This terrifying creation was a reminder of the Empire's might and their willingness to use any means to break Earth's resistance. The arrival of this war machine forced humanity to change tactics again. Large-scale battles became too costly and dangerous, so the Resistance focused on sabotage and hit-and-run attacks, striking where the enemy was weakest. Scientists raced to develop countermeasures against the war machine's weapons, while civilians evacuated targeted areas to minimize casualties. In one gripping encounter, Lieutenant Chen led a small squadron in a desperate mission to lure the war machine into a trap. Using their limited fighters and modified missiles, they aimed to disable the machine's power core. The battle was fierce and intense, with explosions lighting up the night sky and fighters falling one by one. Against all odds, Chen's squadron succeeded in damaging the war machine, forcing it to retreat and buying Earth precious time. Throughout the conflict, stories of heroism and sacrifice emerged, fueling the fire of resistance. Ordinary people became legends, farmers who turned into sharpshooters, engineers who built weapons from scrap, children who carried messages through dangerous zones. The human spirit shone brightest in the darkest hours. As the first major phase of the invasion came to an end, both sides paused, licking their wounds and preparing for what was sure to be an even deadlier struggle ahead. The Empire could no longer underestimate humanity, and Earth's defenders knew they faced a long, difficult fight. But they also knew they had something no enemy could take away: their will to fight for their home and for each other. The first clash had shown the galaxy that humanity was not just prey to be conquered, but a force capable of standing tall against the mightiest powers in the universe. The battle for Earth was far from over, and as the dust of the first fierce clashes began to settle, a new chapter in the war emerged, one filled with rising defiance and unexpected hope that spread like wildfire across the planet and beyond. The Galactic Empire, shaken by the stubborn resistance of a planet it once thought easy to conquer, tightened its grip, sending reinforcements and deploying new weapons to crush humanity's spirit. But Earth's defenders were changing too, growing stronger and more united with every challenge they faced. News of Earth's fierce defense began to travel across the stars, whispered in the dark corridors of distant worlds once held in fear of the Empire. Among the conquered races, stories of humanity's courage inspired quiet sparks of rebellion, reminding them that even the mightiest force could be challenged by willpower and ingenuity. On Earth itself, the secret coalition of scientists and engineers, working in hidden bunkers deep underground, made astonishing progress. Using captured Imperial technology, combined with human creativity, they developed powerful new weapons and defense systems that could match, and sometimes surpass, the invaders' firepower. Their greatest achievement was a prototype energy shield capable of protecting entire cities from the Empire's devastating blasts. Testing it in secret was risky, but the success promised a turning point in the conflict. Meanwhile, Captain Elena Morales, who had become a symbol of Earth's resistance, led daring raids to capture more alien tech and sabotage Imperial operation. Her leadership inspired fighters of all ages and backgrounds to join the cause, swelling the ranks of the resistance with eager volunteers. Pilots, like Lieutenant Marcus Chen, took to the skies in newly upgraded fighters, engaging the Empire's elite squadrons in spectacular battles that became legendary among human forces. These dogfights were not just about survival. They were about sending a clear message to the Empire that Earth's defenders would never give up. As Earth's resistance grew bolder, the Empire responded with cruelty, trying to break human morale by targeting civilian populations and destroying entire towns suspected of aiding the rebels. But instead of fear, these attacks sparked outrage and unity. Across nations and cultures, people found common ground in their shared struggle, setting aside old conflicts to fight as one. Underground networks, coordinated evacuations, medical aid, and supply deliveries, turning ordinary citizens into unsung heroes. Even children became part of the resistance, passing messages and helping in small but vital ways. Far from Earth, other alien worlds watched closely, some quietly sending aid or offering refuge to refugees escaping the conflict. The Empire's hold on its vast territories began to weaken as rebellions simmered in the shadows, fueled by Earth's example. The Galactic Emperor, once confident in his unstoppable conquest, grew wary. He summoned his most trusted commanders and warlords, demanding swift action to crush the defiance that threatened to unravel his empire. Among them was Warlord Darak, a ruthless and cunning leader known for his brutal tactics and iron will. He was dispatched to Earth with a massive fleet and the mission to end the resistance once and for all. Upon arriving, Derek quickly assessed the situation, noting the ingenuity and determination of the human defenders. He realized that brute force alone would not win this war. Instead, he sought to divide and conquer by sowing distrust and fear among Earth's leaders and resistance fighters. Using spies, misinformation, and psychological warfare, Derek aimed to break the unity that had become humanity's greatest strength. But the resistance was not so easily fooled. Captain Morales and her team uncovered Derek's schemes, exposing traitors and rallying their forces with renewed determination. The fight became as much about trust and hope as about weapons and strategy. In a bold move, Earth scientists activated the energy shield prototype over a major city under threat, creating a safe zone that withstood the Empire's powerful attacks. This victory gave civilians a glimpse of security and freedom, boosting morale across the planet. Emboldened by their success, the Resistance launched a coordinated offensive targeting Imperial command centers, supply depots, and communication hubs. These attacks were planned with precision and executed with fierce determination, disrupting the Empire's operations and forcing them onto the defensive. One of the most daring missions was the assault on an Imperial fortress guarding a key starport, a vital link in the Empire's supply chain. Captain Morales led this operation, guiding her team through a maze of defenses and deadly traps. The battle was brutal, with heavy casualties on both sides, but the Resistance prevailed, capturing the starport and cutting off crucial reinforcements. This victory sent shockwaves through the Empire's leadership and ignited hope across Earth. As the war escalated, alliances formed beyond Earth's atmosphere. Alien factions, long oppressed by the Empire, began to send covert aid to the human resistance, providing weapons, intelligence, and safe passage for refugees. These alliances were fragile and secret, but they marked the beginning of a broader coalition against the Empire's tyranny. In the skies, air battles grew more intense and spectacular. Lieutenant Chen and his squadron perfected new tactics that combined human bravery with alien technology, outmaneuvering Imperial fighters in breathtaking dogfights. Their success not only defended key locations, but also inspired civilians watching from below, proving that Earth could fight back even against overwhelming odds. Behind the scenes, the secret coalition developed an even more powerful weapon, a modified fusion reactor designed to disable entire fleets temporarily, giving humanity a chance to strike decisive blows. However, activating this weapon came with risks, including the potential for massive collateral damage if not carefully controlled. The Resistance debated fiercely over its use, knowing the stakes were higher than ever. As Warlord Derek tightened his grip, he launched a massive offensive aimed at crushing the Resistance in one decisive blow. His forces encircled key cities, bombarding them with devastating energy weapons. The fighting was desperate and brutal, with Resistance fighters holding their ground against overwhelming odds. Civilians sheltered in underground bunkers, listening to radio broadcasts of battles and messages of hope. At the war's darkest hour, Captain Morales and her closest allies devised a risky plan to infiltrate Derek's command ship orbiting Earth, aiming to disrupt the Empire's leadership and communications. This mission was perilous, but its success could turn the tide of the entire conflict. The infiltration team faced deadly traps, enemy patrols, and fierce battles inside the ship's corridors, testing their courage and skill. Their progress was slow and dangerous, but with every step forward, they struck critical blows against the Empire's control. Back on Earth, the energy shield protected millions from the Empire's attacks, a symbol of human ingenuity and hope. Civilians and fighters alike watched the skies, knowing that their fate rested not only on weapons, but on the unbreakable bond between people willing to fight for their planet and each other. As the story of Earth's defiance spread throughout the galaxy, whispers of a new power began to circulate, one born from the very heart of humanity's struggle. This rising defiance promised not only survival, but the chance to change the balance of power in the universe forever, proving that even the smallest world could stand against the mightiest empire when united by hope, courage, and the unyielding desire to be free. The war for Earth had reached a moment unlike any before, the turning point, where hope and desperation clashed on the edge of victory or defeat, and every decision carried the weight of the planet's future. After months of fierce battles, sacrifices, and relentless resistance, humanity found itself standing at a crossroads. The Galactic Empire, though battered and frustrated, was still a terrifying force, determined to crush all opposition and claim Earth as their own. Yet the resistance had grown more powerful, more united, and more daring than anyone had imagined possible. The energy shield protecting key cities held firm, giving civilians shelter and allowing fighters to regroup and plan their next moves. Captain Elena Morales, hardened by battle and fueled by unyielding resolve, emerged as the heart and soul of the resistance. She understood that winning this war required more than weapons and tactics. It demanded courage, trust, and the ability to inspire people to believe that freedom was worth any cost. Intelligence reports indicated that Warlord Darek's forces were preparing a massive assault, one designed to crush the resistance once and for all. His war machines, backed by heavy fleets and devastating weapons, were gathering near Earth's largest cities, ready to unleash destruction on a scale never before seen. The resistance knew that holding their ground would be impossible without a bold plan, something that could catch the Empire off guard and shift the balance of power. Meanwhile, deep underground, scientists worked tirelessly to perfect the fusion reactor weapon, a device capable of disabling entire enemy fleets by sending out powerful electromagnetic pulses. But activating it came with great risk. The pulse could damage Earth's own systems and cause widespread chaos if not precisely controlled. The Council debated fiercely, weighing the dangers against the desperate need to stop the Empire's advance. In the end, the decision was made to proceed, with strict safeguards and careful timing. As preparations continued, Captain Morales received urgent news from her infiltration team inside Darek's command ship, orbiting high above Earth. The team had succeeded in sabotaging critical communication systems, plunging the Imperial forces into confusion and cutting off their ability to coordinate effectively. This unexpected disruption offered the resistance a rare opportunity to strike with full force. The stage was set for a decisive battle, one that would decide whether humanity could turn the tide or fall under the Empire's overwhelming might. The night before the battle, a tense silence fell over Earth's command centers. Soldiers, pilots, and civilians alike braced themselves, knowing that the fight ahead would be the most dangerous and important of their lives. Captain Morales addressed her forces, her voice steady and filled with conviction, reminding them that their strength came not only from weapons, but from their unity and spirit. At dawn, the skies exploded with energy as fleets clashed in a dazzling display of light and fire. Human fighters, equipped with new weapons and tactics, met the Empire's war machines with fierce determination. Pilots, like Lieutenant Marcus Chen, led daring sorties that disrupted enemy formations and saved countless lives. The fusion reactor weapon was activated at a critical moment, sending a pulse that disabled large portions of the Imperial fleet and giving humanity's forces a crucial advantage. Ground troops pressed their attack, reclaiming lost territory and pushing back the invaders with a force that surprised even the most hardened Imperial commanders. However, the battle was far from easy. Warlord Darak, enraged by the setbacks, unleashed his secret weapon, a colossal war machine unlike any seen before, capable of firing energy blasts that could destroy entire battalions in seconds. This terrifying machine advanced relentlessly, threatening to break the Resistance's lines and turn the tide once again in the Empire's favor. Captain Morales and her team devised a desperate plan to stop it. Using intelligence gathered from captured Imperial data, they identified a weak point in the war machine's armor, a narrow energy conduit vulnerable to targeted strikes. Lieutenant Chen volunteered to lead a small squadron on a high-risk mission to strike this weak spot. The flight was perilous, with enemy fighters swarming to defend their massive weapon. Chen's pilots fought bravely, dodging blasts and maneuvering through a deadly gauntlet of fire. In a moment of intense focus and skill, Chen fired a precise shot that hit the conduit, causing a chain reaction of explosions that disabled the war machine and sent it crashing to the ground in a cloud of smoke and fire. The destruction of the war machine turned the tide of the battle. With their most powerful weapon gone, the Empire's forces faltered and began to retreat. The Resistance seized the moment, launching a full-scale counterattack that forced the invaders to abandon many of their positions. The skies cleared, and the sound of explosions gave way to cheers from those watching below, knowing that Earth had won a critical victory. But the cost was high. Cities lay in ruins, countless lives were lost, and the struggle was far from over. As the sun set on the battlefield, Captain Morales and her allies knew that this turning point was only the beginning of a long fight for true freedom. The Empire would regroup, send new forces, and continue to threaten humanity's future. Yet, for the first time, Earth stood not as a victim, but as a beacon of resistance, a planet united by hope, courage, and the refusal to be conquered. The story of this turning point spread throughout the galaxy, inspiring oppressed worlds to rise up and challenging the Empire's image of invincibility. Humanity had proven that even the mightiest empire could be fought and defeated when people stood together. The future remained uncertain, but the spirit of defiance burned brighter than ever, lighting the path toward a freedom worth fighting for. After the fierce battle that marked the turning point in Earth's war against the Galactic Empire, the world stood at the edge of a new era, an era where humanity, once seen as a small and weak species, was beginning to rise as a true force among the stars. The victory had been hard won, paid for with countless lives and shattered cities, but it had sparked something that no enemy could destroy: hope. Captain Elena Morales, battered but unbroken, walked among the survivors in the makeshift command center beneath the ruins of a once great city, feeling the weight of responsibility pressing down on her shoulders. The battle was won, but the war was far from over. The Empire, though shaken and weakened, was retreating only to gather strength to return with even greater fury. But now, humanity was no longer hiding or running. They were fighting back with a force that had never before been seen. Across Earth, Communities rebuilt their shattered homes and lives, drawing strength from each other. Scientists worked side by side with engineers and soldiers, merging human ingenuity with captured alien technology to create defenses and weapons that could stand against the Empire's might. The energy shield that had once protected just a few cities was now expanding, covering entire regions and giving millions a chance to live without fear of sudden destruction. In the skies, new squadrons took flight, piloted by men and women who had trained relentlessly to challenge the Empire's dominance. Lieutenant Marcus Chen led these pilots, pushing his team to perfect their skills and tactics, turning dogfights into a deadly art. The galaxy was beginning to take notice of Earth's defiance. Reports of the planet's victories and growing strength spread to distant worlds, encouraging oppressed peoples and rebel factions to rise up against the Empire. Small fleets arrived in secret, offering aid, supplies, and valuable intelligence to humanity's resistance. Captain Morales met with leaders from these alien allies, forging fragile but vital alliances. Together, they planned to strike at the heart of the Empire's power, aiming not just to defend Earth, but to bring freedom to countless worlds enslaved under the Emperor's rule. The Galactic Emperor, enraged by Earth's growing strength and the loss of his prized commanders, sent his deadliest forces to crush the rebellion once and for all. Massive fleets appeared in Earth's orbit, their weapons charged and ready to unleash destruction on a scale that could end the war in a single day. The resistance prepared for the coming storm, knowing that failure meant the end of freedom for humanity and their allies. Yet, even in the face of such overwhelming power, the spirit of defiance burned brighter than ever. Underground bunkers and hidden bases buzzed with activity as scientists activated their most advanced weapon systems. Pilots readied their fighters and soldiers prepared to defend every inch of their home. On the eve of the final battle, Captain Morales addressed the gathered forces, her voice steady and filled with conviction. She spoke of sacrifice, hope, and the unbreakable will of humanity to fight for a future where no one would live in fear. Her words echoed through the hearts of everyone present, binding them together as one. As the battle began, Earth's skies filled with the roar of engines and the flash of energy blasts. Fighter squadrons danced through the void, clashing with the Empire's elite warriors in fierce, desperate combat. On the ground, resistance fighters held their positions against relentless attacks, using every trick, every weapon, and every ounce of courage to protect their homes. The fusion reactor weapon, perfected through countless trials, was deployed at the critical moment. A massive pulse surged through the battlefield, disabling enemy ships and turning the tide in favor of humanity. The Empire's war machines faltered, and their forces began to crumble under the relentless assault. In the heart of the conflict, Captain Morales led a small strike team deep into the enemy flagship, aiming to confront the Emperor's personal guard and disrupt the command structure. The corridors were a deadly maze, filled with traps and fierce defenders, but the team pushed forward with unyielding determination. Each step closer to their goal was a step toward freedom. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Chen and his squadron fought with unmatched skill, protecting the strike team's advance and holding off waves of enemy reinforcements. Their bravery inspired those below, fueling the resistance's resolve. The battle raged for hours, each moment filled with tension and sacrifice. Just when hope seemed to waver, the strike team reached the command center, confronting the Emperor's elite guard in a final, brutal fight. Against overwhelming odds, they succeeded in disabling the command systems, throwing the Empire's forces into chaos. With their leadership shattered, the invaders' morale broke, and the remaining fleets began a chaotic retreat. As the smoke cleared and silence fell, Earth's defenders stood victorious, not just because of their weapons or tactics, but because of their unbreakable spirit and unity. The war was not yet over, but humanity had taken its first true step into a new dawn, a dawn where they would no longer be victims, but champions of their own fate. Across the galaxy, the story of Earth's defiance spread like wildfire, inspiring oppressed worlds to rise and fight for their own freedom. The Galactic Empire, once feared as invincible, now faced a rebellion more powerful than ever before. Captain Morales and her allies knew that the road ahead would be long and difficult, but they faced it with hope and determination. Humanity's dawn had arrived not as a quiet beginning, but as a roar that echoed through the stars, promising a future where freedom and courage would shine brighter than any empire's shadow.